Hey, hi, howdy, hello, and welcome to the show. You can call me Looky Lou, and this is Drawing and Drag, the hopefully weekly show where I will walk you through whatever weird and whimsical workings I have effectively recently recorded. And this is actually some old recording that I found and was saved from that whole debacle that I talked about last week. This is a redraw of something that I did in 2017 whenever I first decided this was going to become a comic. And I'm sure before I tell you anything even about the comic that you will notice some of the main differences between the 2017 version and the 2024 version is the fact that this is digital now. And the original one from 2017 was with Copic markers, or Copics. I don't know how you're supposed to actually say it, but whatever. I always call them Copics. Actually, the whole digital versus traditional was a huge roadblock in the beginning of this comic because I was not happy with the way that my art turned out whenever I did digital for a very, very long time. Actually, until very recently. I didn't like any of my digital artwork, really. Especially not after I added color, everything just felt off. So for the longest time I was trying to figure out how to efficiently do the comic with traditional art supplies while not breaking the bank and also losing all of my storage because of the fact that I'm gonna have thousands and thousands of pages of art. Because if there's one thing about me, I have to be the least efficient possible whenever it comes to making things, considering the fact that I have a binder sitting right next to me that only has about 5 finished pieces of artwork in it, and there's probably about 20 some odd sheets of paper in there, a whole bunch of like drafts and sketches of each of those artworks in various stages of progress and abandonment until the final product was actually made. So yeah, trying to avoid that with the comic, especially considering the fact that this 2017 drawing that you see here, that is one of the pictures that has contributed to the stacks and stacks of pages that sit around me at my desk because of the fact that I did so many iterations of it before I was finally happy with that for that first illustration. And actually the reason why I did so many iterations of this piece before I was done with it, despite the fact that I hadn't actually done much of the comic yet, is because of the fact that my cousin had convinced me to enter the Copic competition with them that year, which, heck yeah, very fun. That helped me nail down a design that loved and stuck to throughout the years, despite the fact that so much else about the story has changed. That still has reverberated to this day. But funnily enough, the cousin that convinced me to enter this contest is also the cousin that inspired me to start drawing in the first place. She used to draw whenever she was in town, and I would watch her for hours and hours whenever I was a kid. And I would just try to imitate her and do the same things she did in order to figure out how to draw. And after years and years of that, and eventually starting to do my own stuff, I learned how to draw. Hooray! So yeah, coming full circle here. The piece that inspired what is now going to be the face of the comic for this first arc was also inspired by the person who made me want to learn how to do art. Hooray! Thanks, Abs, you rock! And other than the medium changing, I am sure that you were able to infer, just based on the number of characters here, that a lot more has changed besides. The story has been refined to a point where most of the characters on here that are the same as the previous version of this picture are so very different from their old selves that they might as well be a new character. And then there are so many other new characters there to replace old ones or to fill in the void of a character that was split into pieces. So yeah. Speaking of refinement, I guess I could actually talk about what's happening on screen for once. The footage that you're seeing here is actually me refining the thumbnail of this piece into its finalized sketch. Yeah, something that I do a lot. So usually the process starts with a different canvas altogether, a lot of little bitty sketches on a canvas probably about the size of a postcard. And once I finally make one that looks about right, I take it to a big canvas and I blow it up to size, and then I sketch and sketch and sketch over top of it until I finally make something that I like, which is where we started here. And going into the line art, we are starting on a character named Redrin. He actually changed a lot considering he could be called the man with 4,000 names. He actually started out as Darbek, a much more stern fellow, slowly softened out to be Darrow, who turned into Dar, who slowly softened out into our very, very sweet boy here, Redrin. Redrin, just as sweet as the sweet rolls that he is so obsessed with. He is the resident council medic is what he will actually be called, not a cleric. Sorry, that's D&D lingo, but I figure that'll be easier for people to, catch on to at the beginning. But uh, council medic. He is considered a council medic. He is certified by the board. Our fancy little man here is going to make sure that everybody stays alive despite whatever shenanigans they all get into, and whatever of those shenanigans he actually gets them into, considering the fact that he likes to have fun. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He can heal you if something happens, and he's a curious little guy. So, anyway, moving right along, we are starting on Reiko here. She did not appear at all in that first poster. She is one of the new characters I was talking about. She originally is based on the character that belongs to a very dear friend of mine, an original character that was from D&D. I'm sure that you all have noticed by now this is very fantasy themed. Yeah, this all started out as a D&D group. Shush. Yes, Reiko. She is our storyteller of the group. She has come from the north with her adopted sister Salem. This is her first time really outside of the home for anything other than a few shopping trips, and so this is some big changes for our girl here. Big changes indeed. Her sister Salem here, though, that we are getting started on, is a much more jaded fellow. She, in fact, has been to town quite a few more times. She used to go with the farmhand Robin quite a lot. So she's not quite as excited as Reiko is for all of this, but she's still going along. She's still here to see the sights and, keep her sister safe. Considering the fact that her sister is absolutely determined to do whatever, sounds most exciting, it seems, considering the fact that this is her first time oot and a boot. So she's just gonna make sure that they both make it home safe and sound, as much as she can anyway. Moving right along, though, we are getting ready to start on some of the characters that do appear on the original poster, starting with Garen here. His design actually changed the least, you probably can tell. He looks pretty similar other than a few color shifts, but his personality has been so much more fleshed out since the beginning, as I'm sure you probably noticed. He and a few other characters there look like nothing more than silhouettes, and now he actually has some personality. Yay, a good boy with a good heart. So we hope. But he is one of our staple characters as well, a character that I came up with, not one that was based on a dear friend's character. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Salem. Salem is also based on a friend's OC from D&D. But Garen, he was one of my characters. He has a interesting role in the story here. He's going to meet up with our characters and he's going to help them on their first foray out into the wilds here, show them what it is about, because he knows quite a lot about it, considering the fact that he's been doing this for years and years. And so has the person that I am getting ready to start drawing now. This fella here was also on the original poster, despite the fact that you might not realize it. He is in the exact same spot. Yeah. Speaking of silhouettes, this fella Tennyson has quite a lot more personality than his original iteration, from basically a story MacGuffin to an actual character now. This little lad here has been out and adventuring for many years with his comrade Garen here, best of friends for a very long time. He still helps his buddy out with whatever he needs for work sometimes, but mostly Tennyson is running around and making sure that he can test out his machinery and, reach his own goals. He's got shit that he's got to do. Leave him alone. Don't ask him about it. Moving right along. This fella right here, his design, I'm sure you have noticed, has stayed pretty much almost the exact same. He's a little bit more uptight now than he was before, as I'm sure you noticed. Maybe has a bit more of a better fashion sense. This is Mr. Conrad. He is the one who employs our folks down here below him. Yes, the corporate man employing all the rest. I'm sure you see where this is going. I, I hope you don't actually, because there's a lot of twists and turns. But anyway, his design stayed pretty much the same. Him and Garen, I refined them to the point that I hope at least their personalities are distinguishable from their original versions. After we talk about Mr. Conrad, then we move on to this character in the center. I'm sure that you have noticed that she is quite shrouded in mystery, and as all you can see is her eyes, and that is because anyway, though, this is really close to where the original video ended. It just went up to the line art and stopped. And that really motivated me to finish this and make it continue on, because as you can see, we are going right into color. So the video that was going to be out last week was just that line art bit. But after finding out that all that footage survived, I kinda got fixated on it and decided I could just finish it though. And so, yeah, one thing led to another. While I was waiting for the original time lapse to render, I just ended up going over to my drawing program and working on it more. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. Hi! Yeah, after starting to edit this video, as you probably inferred, I ended up getting fixated on working on this piece again despite not touching it after the whole footage lost of 2024. Realizing that the only thing lost of this piece in particular was the thumbnailing phase, it got me real excited to just continue on, and one thing led to another, and I just ended up finishing it. So yeah, here we are. Apologies for no video last week, unless of course you are on my Patreon, which means that you did get that time-lapse footage of thumbnail up until line art. Wink, wink. Plug for Patreon. Help me. I need to pay my light bill. Um, but honestly, guys, if you don't have any extra money to throw around in this economy, I totally understand. Just watching the video until the end, liking it if you liked it, commenting something underneath it, sharing it with your friends, that does a lot. And yeah, subscribe so that way you can see more of what's going on here. I'll be posting a lot more comic pages later on once I get more of that footage organized. But for now, let's get back into this speed paint. At this point, we've gotten past the boring part of laying down all of our flat colors and are moving right on into the basic shading for all of our characters here, just making everyone go from a two-dimensional to an at least... We're trying to give them volume here. Everyone gets their shading, everyone, we're gonna make sure they feel like they're not just a flat little sticker on a piece of paper. We're trying to make them feel like they are actual people with hair and clothes and all of that stuff. And once we get all of them shaded and we get everyone's details put in there where they are supposed to be, we'll be moving on to some more effects lighting and stuff, which is something that I have just recently started getting more into. And yeah, figuring out that final step of rendering has been such a huge difference for me. Not that they need the plug or anything, but watching a lot of Drawfee streams while I have been working on comic pages and just hearing them talk about, learning tricks to finishing their renders and stuff just by futzing around and realizing, oh my gosh, that's some of the stuff that I needed in order to make my digital art look the way that I want it to. Like, I don't know, even just small stuff like switching to a rougher textured brush was a huge difference in liking how my art turned out at the end versus at the very beginning. So yeah, if you are switching over from traditional art to digital art and you have been having issues with the way that your digital art looks, maybe you feel like everything looks a bit too clean or a bit too smooth, my suggestion is don't be afraid to mess around with the brushes. I know that sounds super simple, but it honestly took me years to really get in there and just play with almost every single brush. Just sit there and find one that actually felt like I was using a pen again, and find some brushes that whenever I was coloring it actually felt like I was trying to blend my markers. anything that feels more natural to you if you're a traditional artist, go for it. I mean, for goodness sakes, I handed my partner my Cintiq tablet because I missed being able to just focus on drawing when doing digital drawing, and that was one of the best things ever because that is how I started experimenting more with my art because I was just focusing on the screen where I was drawing. Um, which I know that's probably not an issue that a lot of people have, but I don't know. Don't feel weird for doing things a way that other people might find a bit strange. Whatever works for you. If you end up getting to your goal, as long as you're not hurting buddy in the end, go for it, man. Uh, use a weird brush, use a downgraded tablet, go back to the old way of doing hand lettering, even if you redo a letter 5 million times because you hate the way it looks. Yes, I'm talking about that C that I redo over and over and over again. No, it is not done. Yeah, there it goes. Anyway, sorry, let me get off my soapbox there. I'm not really one that should be giving anyone advice on how to do digital art. I just thought if anyone else struggled the way I did, maybe just look at the obvious solutions if you haven't before. Sometimes all it takes is literally switching up your brush. Or learning how to use layer modes because that's like doing a wash over your entire picture afterwards with some tea, like I did originally. And it's like, wow, I can do that digitally, but without throwing tea at my computer? That's so cool. Yeah, so anyway, I know. Super shocker. Episode 2, y'all are finding out that yet again, I can't use technology properly. Will this webcomic actually make it to the web? Who knows? But it's not going to be a webcomic like a webtoon. It's not going to be Infinite Scroll. Sorry, guys, if you like that, but I don't like Infinite Scroll. I tried to do it once before. I posted a prologue for this back in 2020 or 2021 on Webtoon, and it was an infinite scroll, and the fact that I had to dismantle all of my pages in order to make it into that pasteless ribbon of just content, I don't know, didn't like it. Not going back to Webtoons. It's gonna be regular comic pages on the website that you flip through, because eventually it's going to be printed into actual books. That is the form that I hope that it will take finally whenever it is all said and done. And I am sure it will surprise no one, considering at the beginning of this video I said I was debating whether to do it in traditional or digital. It was always going to be a physical book, regardless of whether it ended up being a webcomic. But yes, that joking question that I asked earlier of whether or not it will end up online, yes, it will. It will end up online on my website for free for everyone to read. Yay! But whenever those physical copies come out, there are, of course, going to be some extra chapters that add some context that might be interesting for some. Ho ho, is that maybe a little bit of a hint or a spoiler or a teaser? I don't know. I do know, and yes, it is. But anyway, yeah, thank you all for sticking around for this long. I know that this video was quite a bit longer than the first one, considering the fact that this was 2 videos technically smushed into one, but I am nothing if I'm just that kind of person. I would rather sit there and hyperfixate until I finish something instead of release something that's half done and then release it again whenever it's fully done. I don't know. Tell me which way you guys would have preferred. Would you have rather had just the line art last week and then a finished one this week, or do you like it better this way where I just do the whole thing in one? Let me know in the comments below. Engagement, engagement. I'm trying, guys. I really am. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos as much as I am enjoying making them. It is rather fun, actually, to make these while I am working on the comic. It's been making me a bit more motivated. I don't know, putting a pep in my step, but anyway, here's finished art. I hope y'all stuck around to the end here. We're gonna show it right next to the old one. Well, bam! 7 years difference there, 2017 versus 2024. Hopefully you can see the improvement there that I did. I'm very happy with the results now. But regardless, if you want to help support me in this comic project, maybe consider joining my other patrons, these lovely folks that are on screen right now. Jocelyn Jocelyn, Danny, Carrie, and Nathan, thank you all so much for trying to help me keep my lights on, and I will see you all next week. Bye!